This is something that just popped into my head. It's an IT story that was told to me 30 years ago, but it does have relevance for today, so stick with me. If you know anything about typewriters, you might get this before I get to the end. So let's see. I was working as a data entry clerk, and I was talking to a guy who was a consultant. He was a software consultant, and his company built databases for companies, custom databases. And he was telling me a story of one that they had built. It was probably early 90s, might have been late 80s, but they had built this custom database. And in order to use it, the company had thousands of records that needed to be hand keyed into this database. They were all paper records, but they needed to be put into the computer. So the consulting company went out and hired the fastest typist they could find. And they gave her the records. They set her up in front of the computer, showed her exactly how to enter everything, watched her do it. Everything looked great until they actually went to run the reports, and nothing worked. Nothing was calculating properly. Formulas were broken. They couldn't figure it out until they really started to look at the data and noticed that what was supposed to be numbers was not all numerical. Now, this is where a little knowledge of early typewriters comes in. They didn't have ones or zeros as keys. You didn't need them. If you're typing, you could just use the O and the L as ones and zeros. And so that's what this woman did, because that's how she learned. She was an expert at typing, but not on a computer keyboard where there actually is a distinction between an L and a 1 and a 0 and an O. So, yeah, they ended up having to redo everything, unfortunately. But the lesson for today is with new technologies, the people who are best at using similar but older technologies are not always the ones who are going to get the greatest advantage out of the newer technologies. So, for instance, with AI, what I'm seeing is that people who are skilled computer users, especially engineers, are not really getting the most advantage out of the large language models, which are what most AI that people are interacting with is, because they're treating them like computers. They're trying to program them, for lack of a better word. Whereas the people who are getting the most advantage out of LLMs are the people who just don't know any better, and they're just talking to them like they would talk to an assistant or a colleague. And truly, that's how you get the best reaction and the best output out of a large language model. So when you're looking at your business and you're looking around for, where could we use AI in our business? Start looking at the job functions that involve interpersonal relationships. So not to replace those job functions, but to augment those job functions. Anyone who could really use a super smart intern at their side, that's a really great opportunity to use AI. And, eventually the engineers will come around too. I do know some who are making good use of it. When you're looking at new technologies, especially big ground shifting technologies like AI, look for the biggest benefits where you probably didn't expect to find them, and look for the problems where you might not have expected the problems to occur.